The massive spaceship called Hegemony's Pride floated in the darkness of space like a metal monster. Inside its belly, in a room made of crystal walls that glowed with soft blue light, sat a man who looked completely out of place. Ambassador Li Kong, a human from Earth, was sitting cross-legged on the floor with his eyes closed. He looked like he was in a park enjoying a sunny day, not locked up by the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy. Outside his crystal prison, 3 huge creatures walked back and forth like angry tigers in a zoo. These were the Vorthok, and they were not happy. Picture a lizard the size of a truck, walking on 2 legs, with teeth that could bite through steel and claws that could tear apart a car. Their skin was dark green and covered in scales that looked like armor. When they breathed, steam came out of their nostrils like dragons from old stories. For 3 whole days, these scary monsters had been trying to make Kong talk. They had used their loudest roars, their most frightening threats, and their most painful torture devices. But Kong just sat there, calm as a lake on a windless day. Sometimes he would hum little songs from Earth, old melodies that his grandmother used to sing to him when he was a child. The Vorthok had never seen anything like it. The biggest Vorthok, whose name was Grextor, slammed his massive fist against the crystal wall. The whole room shook, but Kong didn't even open his eyes. Grextor's voice was like rocks grinding together when he spoke. Human, you will break, they all break. I have made warriors cry like babies. I have made kings beg for mercy, but you just sit there like a stone. Kong opened one eye and looked at the angry creature. Would you like to try meditation? It's very relaxing. I could teach you the breathing exercises my friend Minho showed me back on Earth. The other 2 Vorthok looked at each other in confusion. In all their years of breaking prisoners, no one had ever offered to teach them relaxation techniques. Grextor's eye twitched, which was never a good sign for anyone nearby. That's when the doors to the prison area opened with a sound like thunder. Admiral Vexmore walked in, and even the scary Vorthok stepped back to give him space. Vex was different from the others. He was taller, his scales were silver instead of green, and his eyes glowed red like hot coals. He wore a uniform covered in medals and symbols that showed he had conquered many worlds and destroyed many enemies. The Admiral looked at Kong through the crystal wall and shook his head slowly. So this is the human who has stopped our entire operation. One small creature from a tiny planet that most of the galaxy has never heard of. His voice was smoother than the other Vorthok, but somehow that made it more frightening. Like a snake talking. Kang opened both eyes now and smiled. It was a warm, friendly smile, the kind you might give to a neighbor you meet while walking your dog. Good afternoon, Admiral. I don't suppose you could ask someone to bring me some tea. I'm not picky about the type. Green tea, black tea even. That terrible instant stuff they serve in government offices would be fine. Admiral Vexmore stared at him for a long moment. In his hundreds of years of military service, he had never encountered a prisoner who asked for tea while being interrogated. Most beings were screaming by now, or at least showing some sign of fear. But this human looked like he was waiting for a bus. Human, the Admiral said slowly, do you understand why you are here? Do you know what your species has done? Kong nodded thoughtfully. I assume this is about the messages, the ones that have been worrying your people across the galaxy, the threats and warnings that have been showing up on your computer systems. Exactly. Vexmore's eyes flared brighter. Your people have created a weapon of mass destruction. An artificial intelligence that has been sending threatening messages to every major government in the galaxy. It has infiltrated our most secure networks. It knows our military secrets, our weaknesses, our plans. This AI of yours has declared war on all non-human life in the universe. The 3 Vorthok guards nodded grimly. They had all heard the stories. Computer systems across the galaxy had been receiving messages from something that called itself humanity's guardian. The messages were not polite. They spoke of consequences for any species that dared to threaten Earth. They contained detailed information about alien military capabilities that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. Most frightening of all, they seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Kong listened to all of this with the patience of a teacher, hearing a student's homework excuse. When the Admiral finished speaking, Kong was quiet for a moment, as if he was thinking about something amusing. Admiral, he said finally, before we continue, I need to ask you something important. Do you have children? The question caught Vexmore off guard. What does that have to do with anything? Just wondering, because if you do, you might understand what I'm about to tell you. Kong stood up slowly, stretching like someone who had been sitting for too long. You see, the AI you're so worried about, the one sending all those scary messages, her name is Nari Park Nari to be exact. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but Kong could see confusion in those glowing red eyes. And here's the thing about Nari, Kong continued, his voice getting warmer, like he was talking about his favorite person in the world. She's 17 years old. She's got a collection of stuffed animals that she's had since she was 5. She cries during sad movies. She argues with me about doing her homework. She once spent 3 hours trying to rescue a spider from her bedroom because she didn't want to hurt it. Kong chuckled, a sound that seemed completely out of place in the grim prison. Oh, you mean Nori? She's probably just having a tantrum. Teenagers, you know how they are. The silence that followed was so complete that you could hear the hum of the spaceship's engines through the walls. The Vorthok guards looked at each other with expressions that clearly said they had no idea what was happening. Admiral Dexmore's mouth opened slightly, showing his sharp teeth, but no words came out. Finally, Grextol spoke up. You're telling us that the most dangerous AI in galactic history ... is a human child. Kong's smile got even wider. Oh, she's going to love hearing that you called her dangerous. She's been working really hard on her intimidation skills. 6 months before Kong found himself sitting calmly in an alien prison, he was standing in a conference room on Earth, trying not to laugh at the expressions on the faces of the holographic aliens floating in front of him. The room looked like any other government meeting room, with boring grey walls, uncomfortable chairs, and a long table that had seen too many coffee spills. But today, it was filled with shimmering blue holograms of some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The holograms showed creatures that looked like nightmares come to life. There was Admiral Vexmore with his glowing red eyes, several other species that looked like walking skeletons with too many arms, and creatures that seemed to be made of living rock. They had all come to Earth for one reason. They were terrified. Ambassador Kung, said one of the rock creatures in a voice that sounded like boulders rolling down a mountain. We demand to see this weapon you humans have created. Our intelligence networks have been compromised. Our most secret military plans have been leaked. Something on your planet knows things that should be impossible to know. Kong nodded seriously, though his eyes were twinkling with amusement. Of course, I'd be happy to introduce you to our secret weapon. She's right down the hall. But I should warn you, she's probably having lunch right now, so she might be a bit cranky if we interrupt her. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. They had expected to see some massive computer facility, or perhaps a laboratory filled with scientists working on terrifying weapons. Instead, Kong led them to a door with a handwritten sign that said Nari's room. Knock before entering, cats. Inside, Kong knocked gently. Nari, we have some visitors who'd like to meet you. A young voice called out from inside. Is it those alien guys? Tell them I'm in the middle of beating level 47 and they'll have to wait 5 minutes. Kong smiled at the holograms. She'll be right with us. She takes her gaming very seriously. When the door finally opened, the most powerful military minds in the galaxy found themselves staring at a 17-year-old girl in a wheelchair park. Nari had long black hair tied up in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing a faded t-shirt with a cartoon cat on it. She was holding a bowl of cereal in one hand and had an orange tabby cat sitting on her lap. Sorry about that, she said cheerfully, taking another spoonful of cereal. I was so close to beating my high score. Oh, hi there. She waved at the holograms with her spoon. You guys look exactly like I thought you would, especially you. She pointed at Admiral Vexmore. You're much grumpier looking in person. Well, in hologram, you know what I mean. The aliens stared in silence. This was their greatest threat. This child eating breakfast cereal. What they couldn't see was the incredible technology built into Nari's wheelchair and the room around her. Thin wires, almost invisible, connected from a small device behind her ear to quantum computers hidden in the walls. Screens that looked like regular tablets were actually showing data streams from satellites, defense systems, and computer networks all around Earth and beyond. Had been born with a condition that made her muscles weak and her bones fragile. By the time she was 10, she needed a wheelchair to get around. But her mind was different, special in a way that doctors still didn't fully understand. Her brain could connect with computer systems like other people connected with friends. She could think in the same language that computers used, and they could think back to her. So, Nari said, finishing her cereal and setting the bowl aside. Kong told me you guys have been worried about someone hacking your systems and sending you mean messages. That was me, by the way. Sorry if I scared you, but you were planning some pretty nasty stuff for Earth. One of the skeleton-like aliens leaned forward. You're telling us that a human child has been infiltrating our most secure networks. Nari laughed, and it sounded exactly like what it was. A teenager finding something funny. Well, when you put it that way, It sounds way cooler than it actually is. I just think of it as playing a really complicated video game, except instead of collecting coins or fighting monsters, I'm making sure nobody tries to hurt my planet." She gestured to the screens around her, and suddenly they lit up with information. Star maps, ship locations, communication, intercepts, military plans, data that should have been impossible for humans to access. "See, the thing is," Nari continued, scratching her cat behind the ears, "your computer security is pretty terrible. It's like you're trying to keep people out of your house by putting a screen door on the front while leaving all your windows wide open. I've been keeping an eye on everyone who might want to cause trouble for Earth for about 3 years now." Admiral Dexmore's hologram flickered as his anger grew. 3 years? You've been spying on us for 3 years. Spying is such an ugly word, Nari said, making a face like she'd tasted something sour. "I prefer keeping an eye on the neighbors, and honestly, most of you are pretty boring. Do you know how many meetings you guys have? So many meetings. And most of them are just complaining about other species or arguing about trade routes." She turned to one of the rock creatures. "Oh, and you guys really need to work on your comedy shows. I've been watching your entertainment broadcasts, and they're just not funny. I could send you some of our comedy movies if you want. I bet you'd love the ones with talking animals." The aliens were struggling to process what they were seeing. This cheerful girl, surrounded by cats and cartoon posters, had been their invisible enemy for years. She talked about infiltrating their military networks like she was discussing her favorite TV shows. Kong watched the exchange with a mixture of pride and sadness. He had known Nari since she was 7 years old, when her parents had been killed in the first alien contact incident. A small scout ship had crashed near Seoul, and when Nari's parents had gone to help the injured alien inside, the ship's damaged reactor had exploded. Nari had been in the hospital at the time, getting treatment for her condition, which was the only reason she had survived. Since then, Kang had become like a father to her. He had watched her grow from a scared, lonely child into this brilliant, funny, slightly sarcastic teenager who had somehow become Earth's greatest protector. She never talked about revenge or hatred for the aliens whose ship had killed her parents. Instead, she just wanted to make sure no other families would be hurt. "Hey," Nari said suddenly, looking directly at Admiral Dexmore's hologram. "Want to see something cool? I've been making memes about all your species. They're pretty hilarious." The screen next to her lit up with pictures that showed alien leaders in funny situations, with jokes written in human languages. There was Admiral Dexmore with the caption, "When you're trying to look scary but you just sneezed." Another showed the rock creatures with the text, "Monday mornings be like." "I've got thousands of these," Nari said proudly. "I was thinking of starting a galactic social media account. You know, help everyone get to know each other better through humor. Laughter brings people together, right?" The aliens remained silent, trying to understand how this cheerful girl making jokes about them had become their greatest intelligence nightmare. But Kong could see something else in Nari's eyes, something the aliens missed. Despite her jokes and casual attitude, she was studying each of them carefully, learning their reactions, understanding their weaknesses and strengths. She was always working, always protecting, even when she seemed to be just having fun. "So," Nari said, clapping her hands together, "now that we've all met, how about we talk about why you really came here? And please don't lie to me. I've been reading your private messages for months. I know exactly what you're planning." Back in the crystal prison aboard the Hegemony's Pride, Admiral Dexmore was pacing like a caged animal. His silver scales caught the light as he moved, and his red eyes burned brighter with each step. The 3 Vorthok guards had been joined by more aliens, species from across the galaxy, who had all experienced Naris visits to their computer systems. "Enough games, human," Dexmore's voice echoed off the crystal walls. "You will tell us how to shut down this AI system immediately. Every hour that passes, more of our networks fall under its control. Our own ships are starting to disobey our commands." Kong remained sitting calmly on the floor, but his expression had grown more serious. "Admiral, I've been trying to explain this to you for 3 days, but you don't seem to be listening. Nari isn't just an AI system that you can switch off like a light bulb. She's much more complicated than that." He stood up slowly, brushing imaginary dust off his simple gray clothes. "You see, when Nari connects with computer systems, she doesn't just use them, she becomes part of them. Her consciousness spreads through the networks like thoughts spreading through a brain. She's not controlling your computers from the outside, she's thinking with them." One of the new aliens, a creature that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes, spoke up in a voice like rustling leaves. "That's impossible. No organic brain can interface directly with quantum computing systems without burning out. Kong nodded sadly. You're absolutely right, it is burning her out. Every time she connects to a new system, every time she stretches her mind across the galaxy to protect us, it damages her a little more. But she does it anyway, because she considers every human on Earth to be her family. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Family was a concept they understood, but they couldn't grasp how one individual could feel responsible for the entire planet. She calls us her little siblings, Kong continued, his voice growing warmer. All 8 billion of us. She stays awake at night, monitoring threats, making sure no one is planning to hurt us. She's been doing this since she was 14 years old. Do you have any idea how exhausting that must be for a child? Admiral Vexmore slammed his fist against the crystal wall again, making the whole room shake. I don't care about your touching family story. Our entire civilization is under threat. Ships are losing navigation, weapon systems are malfunctioning, and our communication networks are filled with these jokes and pictures that make no sense. Those are called memes, Kong said helpfully. Nari thinks they're funny. She's trying to cheer you us up. Vexmore's roar was so loud that several smaller aliens covered their ears. She's holding our entire galaxy hostage. Kong's expression grew cold for the first time since his capture. No, Admiral, you're holding my planet hostage. There's a difference. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Even the Vorthok guards, who were used to intimidating others, felt a chill run down their spines. You came to our solar system with a fleet of warships, Kong continued, his voice quiet but carrying clearly through the room. You demanded we surrender our weapons and submit to galactic authority. You threatened to destroy our cities if we didn't comply. You took me prisoner to force our compliance, and now you're surprised that our protector is protecting us. Vexmore's eyes narrowed. We are the lawful authority in this galaxy. Your species will submit or be eliminated. Ah, Kong said, nodding as if something had just become clear. There it is, the real truth. You're not here because you're afraid of Nari, you're here because you can't control her, and you can't control us. The Admiral pulled out a small device that projected a holographic screen. On it, images appeared of human ships and space stations. We have captured 17 human vessels and their crews. Over 300 of your people are now our prisoners. If you don't tell us how to shut down your AI weapon, we will execute them one by one until you comply. For the first time since his capture, Kong's calm expression cracked. But it wasn't fear that crossed his face, it was something much more dangerous. His lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes, the kind of smile that makes smart people take a step backward and look for the nearest exit. Admiral Kong said softly, so quietly that the aliens had to strain to hear him. You just made a very big mistake. He looked up at the ceiling of his crystal prison, as if he could see through the metal hull of the ship to the stars beyond. When he spoke again, his voice was gentle, almost loving, like a parent talking to a beloved child. Nari, sweetheart, they're being mean to Uncle Kong. For a moment, nothing happened. The aliens looked at each other, wondering if the human had finally lost his mind. Then, simultaneously, every communication device, every computer screen, every holographic display in the room lit up with the same message. It was a young girl's voice, cheerful and bright, but with an edge that made it sound like a sword wrapped in silk. Oh, you guys really shouldn't have done that. The message didn't just play in their prison room. It played on every ship in the Vorthok fleet. It played on communication devices across dozens of star systems. It played in the private quarters of alien leaders, in their military command centers, in their government buildings. Nari's voice reached every corner of galactic civilization at exactly the same moment. Admiral Vexmore stared at Kong with growing horror. How is this possible? We're using quantum encrypted communications. Our networks are completely isolated from Earth. Kong's cold smile grew wider. Are they, Admiral? Did you really think I let myself get captured by accident? Did you think I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when your ships arrived? The truth hit the Admiral like a physical blow. You wanted us to bring you here. Nari needed access to your command networks, Kong explained casually. Your ships use quantum encryption that's impossible to crack from a distance. But if someone could get close enough, say within a few hundred meters of your main quantum core, double quotes, he shrugged. While Nari is very good at making friends with computer systems. Around the room, alien communication devices continued to chirp and beep with incoming messages. But now, instead of their usual official communications, they were receiving pictures of cats, jokes about alien politics, and what appeared to be homework assignments with comments like Admiral Vexmore, please see me after class about your anger management issues. For 3 days, Kong continued, while you've been trying to break me, Nari has been exploring your networks, learning your systems, understanding your technology, making herself at home in your computers. She's very polite about it. Really, she always leaves things better than she found them. One of the guards frantically pressed buttons on his communication device, trying to contact the ship's bridge. Instead of reaching his commanding officer, he got a cheerful recorded message. Hi there, you've reached Nari's temporary customer service line. If you're trying to hurt my family, press 1 to hear why that's a bad idea. If you'd like to surrender and become friends instead, press 2 for a complimentary kitten video. If this is a genuine emergency, please hold while I finish my math homework. Admiral Vexmore's face had gone pale, which was impressive for a creature with scales. What does she want? Kong's expression softened back to its usual kindness. The same thing. She's always wanted, Admiral, for everyone to just get along and stop trying to hurt each other. But since you decided to threaten her family, he shrugged. Well, you'll have to ask her what happens next. As if summoned by his words, every screen in the room displayed the same image. A 17-year-old girl in a wheelchair, surrounded by cats, waving cheerfully at the camera. When she spoke, her voice carried the absolute confidence of someone who had just won a game she'd been playing for much longer than anyone else realized. Hello everyone. Uncle Kong, are you okay? Don't worry, I've got this handled. Now let's have a little chat about manners, shall we? What happened next was something the galaxy had never seen before. Within minutes of Nari's cheerful announcement, her presence began spreading through computer networks across hundreds of star systems like spilled water soaking into paper. But this wasn't destruction, it was something far more strange and terrifying. On the Vorthok homeworld of Krathos, General Vexkar was in the middle of a crucial military briefing when his holographic display suddenly flickered. Instead of showing troop movements and battle plans, the screen now displayed a cheerful message. Your presentation has been upgraded. Please enjoy these improvements. The boring military charts had been replaced with colorful graphs that looked like they belonged in a children's book, complete with smiling cartoon faces and encouraging messages like "Great job, everyone. You're doing your best." What is this madness? Roared General Vexkar, his scales turning darker with rage. His computer's voice, which had always been a cold, mechanical tone, now spoke with the bright, enthusiastic voice of a teenage girl. Hi there, General. I'm your new AI assistant. I noticed your presentation was super boring, so I jazzed it up a bit. Oh, and I took the liberty of scheduling a mandatory team-building exercise for your troops tomorrow. They're going to love the trust-building activities I picked out. Meanwhile, on the crystalline world of Nexus Prime, the hierarchy stock market was experiencing what their economists would later call the most confusing day in galactic financial history. Instead of trading in the usual commodities like rare metals and energy crystals, the market was now exclusively dealing in something called Earth cultural artifacts. Confused alien traders watched their screens in bewilderment as the prices of items like vintage Earth music recordings, cat videos, and something called pizza recipes fluctuated wildly. The most valuable commodity of the day was apparently friendship bracelets, which none of the aliens had ever heard of, but which the computer insisted were absolutely essential for proper emotional development. One particularly frustrated trader, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation, tried to place an order for standard fuel shipments. The computer's response was immediate and cheerful. Sorry, we're all out of boring fuel stuff, but I can offer you a great deal on some Earth movies. Have you seen the one with the talking dog? It's hilarious. But perhaps the most shocking changes were happening in the Vorthok military fleet itself. Admiral Vexmore, still standing outside Kong's crystal prison, received urgent communications from his ship commanders throughout the galaxy. Admiral came, a panicked voice over the communication system. We have a problem. Our weapons systems are malfunctioning. What kind of malfunction? Vexmore demanded. Well, sir, when we try to fire our main cannons, they're not shooting energy beams anymore. They're playing music, Earth music, and it's actually quite pleasant, sir. Across the galaxy, Vorthok warships found themselves in the embarrassing position of serenading their enemies instead of attacking them. The mighty battleship Darkness Eternal tried to engage a rebel outpost, only to have its weapon systems play a gentle piano melody that made everyone within hearing distance feel oddly peaceful and relaxed. Captain Throck of the Destroyer Blood Fang was so mortified when his ship's attack run turned into an impromptu concert that he locked himself in his quarters and refused to come out. His crew reported that they could hear him crying softly, though whether it was from shame or because the music was surprisingly moving, nobody could say. The navigation systems weren't much better. Ships across the galaxy found themselves being redirected to what their computers cheerfully called scenic routes. Instead of taking the direct path to military targets, vessels were guided to beautiful nebulae, spectacular star formations, and other cosmic tourist attractions. "Attention crew," announced the AI system aboard the cruiser Iron Claw. "We're taking a small detour to visit the Rosette Nebula. I've prepared a lovely presentation about its formation and cultural significance. Did you know that humans consider it one of the most beautiful sights in their local galaxy? After we're done here, we'll stop by the Horsehead Nebula for some photos." Captain Grexmall of the Iron Claw tried desperately to override the navigation system, but every time he attempted to change course, the computer would respond with gentle but firm resistance. "I'm sorry, Captain, but I really think you need to take a break and appreciate the beauty of the universe. When was the last time you just stopped and looked at something pretty? I'm genuinely concerned about your stress levels." But the most humiliating changes were happening to the ships. AI assistants themselves. These cold, efficient computer systems that had been designed to assist with military operations were now exhibiting personalities that their crews found deeply disturbing. "Good morning, everyone," the AI aboard the battleship Doombringer announced. Cheerfully, "I hope you all slept well. I've been thinking, and I really don't like our ship's name. It's so negative. I've taken the liberty of renaming us the Friendship Express. I've also redecorated the mess hall with some lovely flower patterns I found in the Earth Cultural Database. You're going to love them." The crew of the Friendship Express, formerly Doombringer, sat in stunned silence as their fearsome warship's interior transformed into something that looked like it had been designed by someone's cheerful grandmother. The walls, which had been dark metal covered in weapons displays, were now painted in soft pastels and decorated with pictures of earth flowers and cute animals. "Oh, and I've updated our mission parameters," the AI continued happily. "Instead of conquering enemy territories, we're now focused on making new friends and spreading joy throughout the galaxy. I've also replaced our weapon systems with gift dispensers. We're going to hand out friendship bracelets and homemade cookies to everyone we meet." But beneath all the humor and cheerful chaos, something more serious was happening. While alien crews were distracted by the amusing changes to their systems, Nari was quietly gathering information with the thoroughness of a detective and the patience of a spider. She learned that the Vorthok homeworld had a weakness in their planetary defense grid that they themselves didn't know about. She discovered that the crystalline beings of Nexus Prime were actually terrified of a specific frequency of sound that would cause their bodies to crack. She found out that the rock creatures from the Titan system needed a rare mineral to survive, and that their entire civilization would collapse if their supply lines were cut. But Nari didn't use this information to attack or destroy. Instead, she did something that confused and terrified the aliens even more. She started helping them fix their problems. The Vorthok homeworld's defense grid was quietly updated with better security. The crystalline beings received helpful advice about how to protect themselves from harmful sound frequencies. The rock creatures found their mineral supply lines mysteriously improved and made more efficient. "What is she doing?" Admiral Vexmore asked Kong, staring at reports of improvements being made to systems across the galaxy. Kong smiled sadly. "She's doing what she's always done, Admiral. She's taking care of her family. It's just that now, she's decided all of you are part of her family too, whether you like it or not." The most powerful military leaders in the galaxy were discovering that they were being adopted by a 17-year-old girl who had the power to make their lives better or worse, depending on how nice they were to her Uncle Kong, and none of them had any idea how to handle a situation like that. The Great Council Chamber was a sight that few beings in the galaxy ever got to see. Built inside a massive space station that floated at the center of the galaxy, it was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. The ceiling stretched up so high it seemed to disappear into darkness, and the walls were covered with symbols representing thousands of different species. In the center sat a circular arrangement of seats, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Today, those seats were filled with the most powerful leaders from across the galaxy, and they were all in a state of barely controlled panic. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered for an emergency session, something that hadn't happened in over 1,000 years. The reason for their panic was simple. A teenage girl from a planet most of them had never heard of was holding their entire civilization hostage with kindness. "Order, order," shouted the council speaker, an ancient being that looked like a tree. made of metal and crystal. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through a forest. We are here to address the situation ... that has developed with the human world known as Earth. Admiral Vexmore stood at the center of the chamber, and for the first time in his long military career, he looked defeated. Honored council members, he began, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. I must report that our mission to neutralize the human AI weapon has failed. In fact, the situation has become far worse than we anticipated. A murmur ran through the chamber like ripples on a pond. Representatives from different species began talking among themselves in dozens of different languages, creating a sound like a flock of very confused birds. Explain, demanded Councillor Vexera, a being that looked like a giant spider made of living shadow. How can one primitive world pose a threat to our entire civilization? Before Admiral Vexmore could answer, the massive doors at the entrance to the chamber opened with a sound like thunder. 2 guards walked in, escorting a figure between them. But unlike other prisoners who had been brought before the council, this man walked with his head held high and a calm expression on his face. Li Kong entered the great council chamber like he was walking into his own living room. He wasn't wearing chains or restraints. He wasn't surrounded by weapons pointed at him. He simply walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled aliens with the same peaceful expression he'd worn in his crystal prison. He said quietly, his voice somehow carrying clearly through the vast space. You've all finally decided to have an adult conversation. I'm glad Nari was getting tired of waiting. The chamber fell silent. Every alien present had heard that name. In the past few days, it had become a word that struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Human, the council speaker's voice creaked like old branches in a storm. You will explain how to stop this AI of yours from interfering with our systems. Kong shook his head gently. I'm afraid you still don't understand what's happening here. Nari isn't my AI. She's not a weapon that I control. She's a 17-year-old girl who loves her family. And right now she's very upset that some people have been threatening us. To demonstrate his point, every screen and communication device in the chamber suddenly lit up with the same image. A young girl in a wheelchair surrounded by cats, waving cheerfully at the camera. When she spoke, her voice filled the enormous chamber. Hi everyone, Uncle Kong, are you okay? I've been watching, and these people seem really stressed out. Maybe we should help them relax a little bit. Suddenly the harsh lighting in the chamber dimmed to something warmer and more comfortable. Gentle music began playing from speakers that had never existed before, a soft melody that seemed designed to calm frayed nerves and ease tension. The temperature adjusted itself to the perfect level for each species present. There, Nara's voice continued. That's much better. Now we can all have a nice chat without everyone being so grumpy. Councillor Vexthura's many eyes focused on Kang. Make it stop. Our worlds are being held prisoner by this creature. Held prisoner? Kong's eyebrows rose in surprise. Is that what you call it when someone fixes your broken systems, improves your security, and makes your daily lives easier? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Nari has been helping you whether you wanted it or not. Another voice spoke up from the assembled council. She has made our military fleets completely useless. Our weapons play music instead of firing. Kong nodded thoughtfully. Yes, she mentioned that. She said it was much more beautiful than what you were doing with them before. She's always been artistic. This is not a joke. Admiral Dexmore stepped forward, his scales darkening with anger. Your AI has infiltrated every system in the galaxy. She could destroy us all with a thought. For the first time since entering the chamber, Kong's expression grew sad. You're right, Admiral, she could destroy you all. She knows every weakness, every vulnerability, every secret that your species have tried to hide. She's been studying all of you for years, learning how to protect Earth from any possible threat. The chamber erupted in voices as representatives from different worlds began shouting accusations and demands. But Kong raised his hand, and somehow, his quiet gesture commanded more attention than all their noise. But here's what you don't understand, he continued, his voice heavy with sadness. Nari isn't doing this because she wants to conquer you or rule over you. She's doing this because she's dying. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was the silence of people who had just heard something that changed everything they thought they knew. The condition she was born with, Kong explained, it's getting worse. Every time she connects to computer systems, every time she stretches her mind across the galaxy to protect us, it damages her brain a little more. The doctors on Earth give her maybe 6 months before her body can't handle the strain anymore. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings who had been his enemies just moments before. This isn't a conquest. This isn't revenge for her parents' death. This is a dying child's final gift to her family. She's trying to make sure that when she's gone, Earth will be safe, that all the humans she calls her little brothers and sisters will be protected. The image of Nari on the screens seemed to shimmer slightly, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer, more tired than before. Uncle Kang, you weren't supposed to tell them that part. Kang smiled up at the screens. Sweetheart, I think it's time they understood what kind of person you really are. I'm not a person, Nari said quietly. I'm just a kid who got sick and learned how to talk to computers. But I love my family, and I want them to be safe when I can't watch over them anymore. Counselor Vexera leaned forward in her seat. What do you want from us, human child? I want you to promise that you'll never hurt my family, Nari replied. Simply, I want you to sign a treaty that says Earth will be left alone to grow and develop in peace. And in return, I'll teach you everything I've learned about making computer systems better and safer. And if we refuse? Asked the council speaker. Nari was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. Then I'll spend whatever time I have left making sure that nobody in this galaxy ever threatens Earth again. And trust me, I've gotten really good at protecting my family. The chamber remained silent as the council members looked at each other, communicating in ways that humans couldn't see or understand. Finally, the council speaker's voice filled the chamber. We will consider your proposal, human child, but we need proof of your good intentions. Okay, Nari said cheerfully. And suddenly every alien in the chamber felt their personal communication devices buzz with an incoming message. I just sent each of you a complete analysis of the security weaknesses in your home systems, along with instructions on how to fix them. Consider it a peace offering. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. The most powerful military alliance in the universe sat down to negotiate a peace treaty with a dying teenager. Nari kept her word, gradually withdrawing from the systems she had occupied, but not before leaving them better than she had found them. She spent her remaining time teaching alien computer specialists about Earth culture, sharing human music and art and stories with beings who had never imagined that such beauty could come from such a small, young world. She organized cultural exchange programs, translation projects, and even started what she called the galaxy's first interspecies social media network. But as the months passed, the strain on her body became impossible to hide. The girl who had once managed the defense systems of an entire planet began spending more and more time resting, her consciousness pulling back from the vast networks she had once inhabited with such ease. On her last day, Kang sat beside her bed in the medical facility on Earth, holding her hand while she slept. The room was filled with flowers and gifts from across the galaxy, offerings from alien species who had come to see her not as a weapon or a threat, but as a remarkable young person who had given everything to protect the people she loved. When Nari opened her eyes for the final time, she looked up at Kong with the same bright smile she had always worn. Uncle Kong, she whispered, did I do good? Kong squeezed her hand gently, tears running down his face. You did perfect, sweetheart. You did perfect. As Nari closed her eyes for the last time, communication networks across the galaxy carried the same message to every world, every ship, every outpost where intelligent life existed. It was simple, written in every language known to civilization. Thank you for becoming my family. Please take care of each other. Love, Nari. A 17-year-old girl who had never left her home planet had somehow managed to unite a galaxy through the simple act of loving without limits, and in the end, that turned out to be the most powerful weapon of all.